Hello and welcome to the Scottish Liberty Podcast, episode 20. I'm Antony Sammeroff.
And I'm Tom Laird.
It's the 27th of October 2016 and we have a very special guest on the show today, Fred Sly from the Oregon Prison Project. This is something that's been of extraordinary interest to me and I'm really excited to have you on the show, Fred. Thank you for coming along.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here.
So could you please start by telling us a little bit about your background and explaining what the Oregon Prison Project is?
Yes, I'd be glad to. So I have a doctorate in psychology, and what brought me to that was in 1999, I discovered that many of the ways I was thinking about the world and relationships in the world were simply false. What I was telling myself is that relationship was always difficult. It was always going to be conflictual. There was always going to be struggle. And I discovered that was just a story I was telling myself, and that there was a method and a consciousness I could use to create cooperative and peaceful relationships. And that method was called Nonviolent Communication.
Wow.
And the moment I discovered that, it was really exciting for me. I just decided, well, I'd learned thousands of things in my life by that time, and I was just going to learn this. And so I threw myself into taking classes and eventually teaching classes. And one result was that I was invited to teach in San Quentin prison in California. San Quentin is a San Francisco Bay Area prison. It was the oldest prison in the California prison system.
Yeah. Made famous by Johnny Cash, of course.
Oh, yes, of course. He sang at Folsom.
Yeah, okay. All right, okay. But he sang about San Quentin.
He sang at San Quentin as well, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And so in 2002, I was invited because I was part of a leadership program at that time. I was intensely learning how to teach nonviolent communication and to live the consciousness. I was invited to teach in San Quentin, and we organized a project, 4 or 5 of us there, that's still running today, that ended up offering 4 classes weekly in San Quentin. There were 14 or 15 volunteers doing that. And I was deeply touched by how people calmed down when they were in our classes. Right? And it was during a particular time in our curriculum when we were mostly emphasizing empathy training and the building of empathy within people, that people began to calm down. And I got very curious about that. So part of that curiosity took me into my doctoral program. And in 2008, I moved to Portland, Oregon to be with my family, my grandchildren here. And I wasn't here very long before the phone rang and offered me a chance to teach in Oregon prisons. And so, again, we started a project here. And now I have 30 volunteers teaching in 5 Oregon adult facilities and 2 Oregon Youth Authority facilities and 3 different post-release programs. And the outcome is still the same. When people go through our program's a year long, when they go through our program, they calm down. And from that place of calm, they report being able to make different decisions in their life. And they also report that their social relationships have expanded. They're able to be back in the lives of their families, see their children again, and have cooperative relationships with those around them. Within the prison, the number of behavioral concerns that they might have had have gone way down. They're not getting in the same kind of fights. There's not so much arguing, and those kinds of things are happening. So that's kind of how I got here.
Okay.
It seems from the way that you tell the story that it was remarkably easy for you to get into prisons. That surprises me. Was that the case, or was it a challenge? And is there hunger for more of this in other prisons?
Well, in California, it was a really profound time for California because San Francisco County Jail had put a program in place that had reduced the incidence of reoffense in violent crimes by 82.6%. Now, that was so huge, right?
Yeah.
82% reduction, right? That the California Department of Corrections simply could not ignore it. The outcry from the public was this is 1996 there. People are going, what are we doing? If this is possible, why are we doing what we're doing, right? That program is still running. And so the state of California decided, all right, we're going to use San Quentin and we'll try to put something similar in place. So they contacted many, many organizations in the San Francisco Bay Area that at the time were offering some peacekeeping kinds of programs like yoga, Buddhist meditations, mindfulness, all of these different kinds of things. And one of our nonviolent communications trainers had been a mindfulness practitioner for years. And they contacted the Nonviolent Communication Agency known as Bay NVC, which they were the organization I was taking my training program through, and said, would you like to come and be part of this? And they said yes, and they had also just put in place their first cohort of teacher trainers. And so they contacted us and said, well, you are the people that might want to do this. Here's a population of people that would like training, and they can be, sort of a practicum for you for your teaching skills. And so the state of California gave clearances to 500 different people that do peacekeeping kinds of trainings to come into San Quentin prison or put together a program. Well, many of those programs are still there. Ours is still there. And when I got to Oregon, I was surprised, so that was a welcome there within San Quentin. That isn't true about the rest of the California system. It's much more of a struggle. Okay. And it was also a struggle in San Quentin as well. While there was a embracing from a certain part of the administration, other parts of the administration were not so welcoming. So it was kind of, as we organized the program, it was kind of push and pull there. Okay. Sometimes we were welcome, sometimes we weren't. But when I got to Oregon, I just got a phone call from a friend who said, here's a chaplain in Oregon State Penitentiary, which is sort of equivalent to San Quentin. It's the oldest facility here in Oregon. And right. she would like nonviolent communication to come to the prison. And uniformly after that, the Oregon prison system has opened its arms, right? Now, it's not all perfect, but there's a big welcoming here. Yes, I don't get much in the way of pushback at all. In fact, I get sort of uniform cooperation and welcoming.
When you were in California, you talk about pushback. What were the roots of that? What was the main problem that you feel that they were skeptical about, and what's the difference in Oregon? Why that difference in attitude towards this program?
Well, I think overall there is an attitude about people who have been to prison that creates discrimination that's on the same level of sexism and racism and all the other isms that keep people separated. I'm calling it criminalism, right? Which means that you're not quite human and you're probably a little bit dangerous just because you've been to prison. Now, it doesn't matter if you've been to prison for one of the most horrible crimes ever or a nonviolent drug bust, which most countries in the world do not put people into prison for nonviolent drug busts. Right? But if you've been there for a nonviolent drug bust, and certainly in America, there's something wrong with you and you're dangerous. And all of a sudden you're not seen as human anymore. Right. You're just a criminal, right? And so there's this fear. It's kind of a stranger danger that's involved with anybody that's been to prison. So, California is kind of a rich state in many ways, although that's changing, right? Mm-hmm. It's got plenty of money to build prisons and pay correctional officers and do these kinds of things. So that attitude can linger, even though there might be a subset of the administration.
Right.
On July 1st, 2006, the California Department of Corrections became the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. And pretty much on the same day, they stripped out education and rehabilitation programs from the prison system. There's sort of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, the two parts of the system. One of them that longs for rehabilitation and to see people as human, and one of them that is reacting to this unknown dangerous monster that sits out there.
Okay.
Now, Oregon is a poor state. No, there isn't any fishing left, or very little, enough to do subsistence for fishermen on the coast. Timbering is pretty much long since gone. It's clear cutting tiny trees now, and it's really not so much a viable industry anymore in our state. We don't have any money.
Yeah.
And if there are rehabilitation programs that can reduce the population of the prison or reduce the incidence of violent crime by 82.6%, then corrections is a very low-hanging fruit for saving money in the state.
Right.
If we can get people out of prisons, and so all of a sudden the state of Oregon is seeing this as a way to balance its budget. Now, this isn't really articulated clear thinking yet, but when I talk to anybody in the Department of Corrections, and they're all kind of, things are really challenging and this isn't working very well.
Okay.
And this includes how correctional officers themselves are being affected. Working in a prison is an extremely challenging and stressful job. If you tell yourself that everybody is out to get you and that you're all dangerous, your stress level is extremely high. And many people take that home. So now in the United States, we've raised the retirement age to 67 here.
Okay.
What do you think the average age of death of a correctional officer that has served 20 years in security is?
I would hazard a guess it'd be quite young, maybe in the 50s, late 50s.
Yes, thank you. And that's quite accurate. It's 58 years old.
Okay.
That's the average
really
age a person dies if they've spent 20 years in corrections.
Mm-hmm.
The suicide rate among correctional officers is about triple of what it is for multi-deployment veterans.
Right.
So all of these things are horrible. Of course, then there's the heart disease and the obesity and relational problems. Divorce rate 72%, and all of these ills.
Yeah.
And so, at one point, the head of the employees of the Correctional Officers Union and one of the chaplains came to me and said, we're having a whole lot. We're all brokenhearted by the number of suicides we're having. It was the third one that year, right? Okay. And there were five that year. We see the people graduating from your program as changing their behavior and calming down and being able to make different choices and just generally being healthier in their lives. Can you put together something for us for correctional officers?
Right.
Wow.
So we didn't have a program like that would address health issues. We were doing relational and choice issues. That's sort of the content of nonviolent communication. One of them, we can talk more about that.
Right.
But we knew someone who was teaching correctional officers mindfulness-based stress reduction. Nonviolent communication is very much a mindfulness practice on its own. So we just called this person up. His name's Fleet Mall. He has the Prison Mindfulness Institute. We invited him out, and now this is our fourth year of offering mindfulness-based stress reduction called mindfulness-based wellness and resiliency within the Oregon prison system to correctional officers. And as a result, there's calming and more peace and a report of increased health and a report of an increasing cooperativity in the employees in the Oregon Department of Corrections. And so while this is new and, it's kind of mindfulness, isn't that some Eastern mysticism?
Yeah, could you just explain for maybe some of our podcast listeners who don't know the exact meaning of the term, what you mean by mindfulness?
Well, does any of you have things that you do that if you don't pay a lot of attention to them will hurt you?
Not immediately. No, okay.
Well, I mean, so you could get burnt cooking even.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah. In the kitchen.
Like driving a car or driving a motorcycle or a scooter, right?
Yeah,
For many years, I was a builder and I had cabinet shops and a furniture company. And I had table saws, and I still have all 10 of my fingers. And so mindfulness is the quality of attention that you pay where you're completely present. Where for me, with in my cabinet shop on my table saw, I could see all 10 of my fingers. I could see the grain in the board, noticing when the board might want to take over where it was going through the saw. I could see the fence that the board was running against, and I could see the blade, right? So it's a quality of attention you bring to your life.
Right.
That's a quality, and you expand that attention from me, not just my fingers and the blade and the saw, but to everything that's going on inside of me as a human, right? So what kind of thinking do I have, and what is my feelings telling me, and how's my body right now? So it's a quality of simply observing, and this is way older than Eastern mysticism.
Yeah.
This is like a class of Humanity 101. What can you do to improve your life? And the easiest answer to that is to pay direct attention to it. Well, you know that right now in the United States, right, there's a lot of fear running around, and fear messages tend to get people jacked up and reactive when they're not making considered decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mindfulness simply enables you to have more resiliency, more bounce back after things happen, and to be able to pay attention to the difference between the alarms you're getting inside because of the sort of continued message of threat. You know, it's like the sky is falling, Chicken Little kind of things, right? To pay attention to those messages, and then what is the truth of your life in the moment? Are you really at threat? Is this how you want to respond to your life? So it gives you the capacity to respond rather than react to things that goes on around you. And if anything is a underlying capacity to create peace, it's mindfulness. And so it's nothing amazing, it's amazing, but it's nothing different and mystical that requires years and years of sitting, on a cushion to accomplish. You can do this in any moment that you bring your attention to your life rather than to the reactions that you're having, sort of the bouncing and ping pong that you have.
Yeah, right.
Does that make sense to you now?
Yeah, it makes sense.
That makes sense. And what part does that have to play in the communication training that you give the inmates?
Thank you, because there are ways that we use language that indicate that we are in a reactive place in our lives, right? That we have three parts of our brain. One of them is our own old reptilian brain. Its structure is traceable from back to reptiles, right? And that part of your brain is responsible for fighting and flight and running and freezing, right? Your mammalian threat response lives there, right? Well, that part of your brain only has one question. Am I safe? Yes or no, right? So it's a very polarized way to look at the world, right?
Right.
Now think about language, right? If one of you could do me the favor of telling me that what I'm telling you right now is stupid and doesn't make any sense, I'll use it as an example.
Okay, that's stupid, and it sounds like horseshit to me,
I don't know why do we even call you on the show, Fred? I mean, you just contributed.
You're both wrong. It's very sensical and very logical, and you just don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Okay.
Now go ahead and come back. Come back again.
Well, I mean, that's easy for you to say, Fred. You know, like, who are you to say that to us?
Well, I'll tell you who I am. I have a doctorate in psychology. I have 5 academic degrees, and I've been doing this for years.
So basically, you're
smarter than us.
And you psychologists just live in ivory towers. You're completely disconnected from the real world. And the real world,
I have been into prison twice this week and got out the same day. Where have you? Where's your thing with the mean streets? You're sitting in some of. So do you understand?
When there's people out there suffering in the world that through no fault of their own, why are you going in and helping these scumbags when some people?
Well, just notice the quality of conversation we're having.
Right.
Yeah.
I call this right-wrong ping-pong.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
We're in this place where it's polarized. You're wrong, and I'm wrong, or I'm thinking I'm right. You're telling me I'm wrong, and we're just going back and forth. We don't even know what we're talking about anymore. Right?
Right.
We're just playing right and wrong. Right?
Okay.
Well, Well, this kind of quality of interaction, and how familiar is this to you?
Oh, very familiar.
Yeah.
I'm a divorced guy, you know. So.
And this is probably why.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I'm sure it was all my fault. Yeah.
No, it's not your fault. This is a way you have learned to communicate it. It's a way you have learned, and it's not your natural language. Your natural language is a cooperative language. Humans are at threat if they're not connected. Humans need to be. So if you were a human being and you're out on the African veldt by yourself at breakfast or, I already gave it away, right? Yeah. At dawn or dusk, what can we call you?
Lunch?
No, you're breakfast or dinner. The people eat in the morning and the evening, and they sleep during the height of the day, right? So at noon, you're fine, right? But morning and evening, you could be somebody's meal, right?
Yeah.
Now, 8 humans out there standing back to back with sticks. What do you think they are?
Getting fed.
They're safe. That's a hunting party, right? You know,
right.
Kiddies look at that and go, whoa, I don't know what that is, man, but I'm not messing with it. It's too big for me. I'm going to find something weaker and sicker looking to mess with. So it has been an imperative for humans. The only way we manage to evolve is together in groups. So cooperation is hardwired into us everywhere. Our bodies are built for it. Our minds are plastic, and they keep sort of changing to try to bring us closer and closer to connection. And it's one of the strongest desires and longings that people have. And in this world where people are so disconnected, most people are lonely and depressed because they don't have the quality of social connections that they really need to be less anxious. Because if you are really well socially connected, you are calm. You are calm. If you are not, you are terrified. And there's a way that we have this sort of normative anxiety that runs behind us all the time that we're trying to medicate and handle, right? So this is just part and parcel of what's true for us. And if you're a minorly anxious, you're back in that reptilian brain. And so the way you see the world is polarized. Yes, no, black, white, right, wrong, right? All of that is just comes forward, right? There's a part of your brain, it's called your prefrontal cortex, which is the cooperative part of your brain. You want to be able to live in there, but in order to live in there, you got to be calm because threat response. Sorry to say it like this: threat response trumps, right? It takes charge. It takes over, right?
Okay.
Right.
And you can take charge back, right?
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you've got to bring attention and mindfulness.
Right.
To look at it and assess it, right? So it's so easy to fall into that reactive part. So nonviolent communication invites people to examine how they are right in every moment, and so this is why it's a mindfulness practice. How am I? What's going on inside of me moment by moment? And what does the way I'm using my language reflect about how I am? Right. So if I'm doing the right, wrong ping pong, I can simply stop and say, wait, this represents me being activated. I'm afraid right now. I'm telling myself that there's a threat. And in order to connect and make a relationship with this person, I need to calm down. So for me now, the vast majority of times I can notice things and then just take a couple of really deep breaths into my belly, calm down. It brings me into a different part of my brain. And also there are many other techniques that you can use to calm yourself and bring you into a cooperative possibility. So nonviolent communication first asks people to notice where they are in the world and then acknowledge what's true for them, because this brings us back into our own space, back into our bodies, rather than you are my oppressors, you are, you're wrong, you're, like all this. It's like, God, I'm a little anxious right now. I'm feeling worried, I need to have some assurance that I'm safe. This brings me back inside of myself, right? And then it comes down to, well, we've got this thing going on between us. What do you imagine we could do that would work for both of us? Right. It allows the cooperative possibility to simply emerge. I love this tool for that. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's accessible. it's not necessarily easy to learn because you're sort of learning how to defuse and get into cooperative relationship with your reactive parts.
Yeah.
And that can be really compelling, like, so I'm a veteran. I've had maybe 300 times a day of being sort of activated in messages that I'm at risk.
Right.
And when I back over my life since I got out of the service,
right.
I can think of about 5 times in my life where I was actually at risk. Right?
Okay.
And so the odds are pretty damn small, right?
Yeah.
They're like out on the freeway in your car, right? These are the worst possible times, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I had a motorcycle for years, and I surfed for years, and I scuba dived and raft rivers, and with all of that possibility, still 5 times I could say that maybe there was an actual threat in my life, and never when I'm in prison. I'm at more risk when I'm driving back and forth to the prison than I ever am inside. So.
Okay. And what categories of prisoner are we talking about here? Are we running the whole gamut here? Are we talking first-time offenders all the way through to extremely violent criminals?
Yes. So our program will train anybody that is allowed by the prison to walk into the room.
Okay.
Now, that includes some people who have had some pretty horrendous things that have happened to them and that they were engaged in. Right?
Yeah.
Things that we would call just plain horrible. Right? And it also means that the prison system has assessed that their security risk is small enough that they can attend classes.
Right.
And this is something that's over a period of time, right?
Okay.
So there are people that we will never see.
Right.
There are people that are in mental health segregation because the challenges in their life has led them to be less connected to their surroundings than we are. They're more connected to their active stories than they are to what's present in front of them. So our program could probably support those people in having a different life. It might take longer than anybody would want to, I mean, I worked for community mental health for years. I understand what it takes for a person to be able to shift. Mm-hmm. And what kind of patience is required with some people depending on the depths of their wounds.
Right.
You can't tell person to person, right? It's totally an individual thing.
Okay.
And we are simply not engaging that. We are engaging those folks that the prison system says they have behaved well enough that we can trust that they can attend a class.
Sure. Okay. So, and is the program completely voluntary on both sides? I.e., it's voluntary in terms of the prisoners they attend this program on a voluntary basis, and are the people who teach it? Is it all voluntary?
All of the teaching staff is volunteer.
Okay.
Sometimes, people in prison have something called a counselor, and it's not a mental health person.
Yeah.
It's more like a case manager.
Yeah.
And sometimes people's case managers will say, okay, you're going to go take the nonviolent communication class. Well, to them, it means that they have been told that they had to.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, if you take our classes, we are sponsored by religious services or life skills. If you don't pass our class, that doesn't result in you getting a behavioral charge.
Wow. Right. Okay. Good.
It doesn't. No one ever is punished or penalized for not completing our class. Right.
Right.
Some people who come think they are. Right.
Okay.
But it's not the case, and they think that they'll be persecuted in some way by their counselors if they've been told to take the class. Now, about half of those stay and then later on report, well, I'm glad I did, but, I didn't like the fact,
Right.
Because they start to recognize what does it mean when you're telling yourself you don't have a choice, right?
Mm.
Right? What does it mean? If you tell yourself you don't have a choice, that's in the category of right-wrong ping-pong. Because I can simply tell you, yes, you do, and you can say, no, I don't, and then we are in this polarized territory. So the awareness required to notice that you are in sort of your reptilian brain and your mammalian threat response, that takes about a third or to half of our class to get people aware of all of the symptoms of being in a reactive place.
Right.
Well, it sounds like I'd like to take this class.
Yeah. I'm even thinking about it myself.
Yeah, I'm thinking of maybe going to Oregon and committing some crimes.
Well, you might. One of the biggest horrors in Oregon prisons is that the inmates are the most upset about is that you get the stalks of the broccoli, but not the tops.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is a cause of consternation.
This is it. And what a delightful example to use. To point to us how we're affected by this. What does it mean to us when the prison system serves us for lunch the stalks of broccoli but not the tops? And the vast majority of the responses people have is that they don't think we're human. They don't think we deserve a place at the table, right?
Right.
And remember the primitive terror level of response, right? To believe that you've been excluded because, to be banished is the worst punishment a human can go through. Right? Okay. Because it's terror. Hey, if you're banished from the tribe, you are dinner or breakfast for something, right? Because you're no longer, you're by yourself again, right? And that, right?
I suppose it depends on your personality to a certain degree, Fred. I know that when I was a kid, I was completely bamboozled, but I would watch TV programs and American TV programs, and like at some point a parent would say to a kid, "Go to your room," and I would like say to my dad, what's that all about? What's going on there? Why is he getting sit and say, that? My dad would say, he'd kind of put his paper down, look at it and say, that's the middle class's idea of a punishment, son. And I never really got that because I couldn't think of anything better than being sent to my room. My toys were in my room, my books were in my room. I didn't have to put up with my annoying little brother,
Yeah. It's not, it could be the same thing as go to Disneyland, right?
Right.
It's that you don't have choice.
Right, okay.
Right? And choice is so important for us because if we don't have choice, there are many, many people who have had horrible things that have happened to them. Right? Right. And part of it was that they didn't have choice. These things were imposed on them. Think about rape and murder and all of these things. These are outsized things that are imposed on you. So there's preconditioning to any perception of not having choice. That this is a danger sign, like something horrible can happen to me, right? And so there's a lot of organizational building exercises that are trust building exercises, right?
Right.
The person falling over backwards with their hands over their eyes. That's some way to sort of relieve the body and give them the impression that you can have cooperative relationships. Because, like I said, people are walking around anxious all the time, right? Yeah. Telling themselves that they're out of control, that things are a mess. Nobody's at the wheel of the ship, and here comes the iceberg. And what's happened, right? And in this case, with global warming, et cetera, a lot of this is true, right? That there are things out there that would suggest that we're all deeply at risk, right?
Right.
Do you find rather that then the prisoners that are asked to go there by the counsellor are less engaged because they don't have a choice? Do the people who are really engaged tend to be the people who volunteered, or is it unpredictable?
Well, yes, at least initially, right? The people that come in because they chose to be there, they put their name on the list, right? They did all of that. Seem to be a little bit calmer when they come in the room than the people who have been voluntold, right? They told you, because I'm just mad, right?
Yeah.
However, those messages are among the first things that we work for. We work with that stuff, right? So the way that the volunteers and the trainers in the class do it is to bring a person's reactive expressions back into what their truth is, right? And so someone might say, I don't know why I'm in this class. I was told my counselor told me I had to be here, and it's just, I don't want to be here, right?
Right.
And so I'll say something to them, or other volunteers that do the same thing. Well, it sounds like you'd really like choice in your life, and it kind of sucks that you have to that you're here now. You want to be able to do something else with your time.
Right.
And you know what the person will say?
Yeah. What?
Yeah, that's what's going on, man. I'm pissed, right? And I want to be able to use my time. This is what's true for me, right?
Yeah.
And just in that moment, this is what's true for me. That lands in them as a realization of what is their truth in the moment, or how they are in this moment. And everybody's body wants that.
Right.
How am I right now? Not what I'm telling myself is going on. I calm down when I'm in connection with my genuine in the moment truth.
Okay.
And I feel connected because someone else is there witnessing my truth. So what happens to those folks is after about 6 weeks or 8 weeks, they start saying things like, well, I didn't want to be here, but I'm glad I'm here now. I had a phone call with my wife, and I did that thing that you do, and we didn't end up arguing, right?
Okay, yeah, got you.
Starts to happen.
Yeah, that kind of leads into the question, because we're going to say let's get down to cases in terms of, first of all, how you measure success in these situations, and how successful is it? And when I'm talking about success, like, okay, reoffending. What's reoffending like for people who've been through these courses? Yeah, how do you measure success just from the start? Yeah.
Well, I chose not to do research
on
our program, and why is I wrote my doctoral dissertation on empathy and violence, and why men are 97% of the people in prison.
Right.
And while studying that, I came on study after study after study that said, anytime you teach people empathy, anytime you do that, right, aggression goes down, prosocial behavior goes up. And the studies that I ended up running into were these huge studies that were studies of studies. And so involved in this were thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people across all sorts of contexts, right?
Yeah.
And including that study I cited about the reduction of recidivism and violent crime. Right? That was an empathy teaching program, right?
Okay.
So at some point I realized, people are calming down in my classes. I don't have to wonder what is going on here. Right? They're learning empathy. They are calming down as a result of this, right? Other studies show and then there was a tiny study done with parolees that showed that even 8 hours of nonviolent communication training, somebody will have a significant change in their empathic capacity on a psychological test, right? There's a significant change there. They didn't measure it out over time. This was just after the 8 hours they took they did a pre and post. They tested at the beginning and tested at the end, and there was a significant change.
Yeah.
So for me, I decided just not to do that, because then I would need to be involved with the university and spend a lot of resources to, for me, recreate the wheel.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I spent time doing was getting ever better at teaching empathy. And there's a new discipline out there. It's not horribly new, but it's called interpersonal neurobiology.
Right.
Which shows in brain structure what happens when people receive empathy.
Okay.
Wow.
So we don't even have to wonder what's going on. The moment that person understands that I care about their experience, it sounds like you really want to, you're pissed, you really want to choose how you use your time. Yes.
Right.
That moment, their brain is rewiring. That part of their brain that is social lights up in that moment. They have a experience of connection, right? And we're all so hungry for that, right? I mean, people walking around with their cell phones, texting, looking down, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a drug, right?
Yeah.
By any description, this is addictive behavior, right?
Sure.
Right.
They're trying to create connection.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in a way that isn't satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's why they keep doing it over and over and over again, constantly going to my phone. It's totally addictive.
Yeah.
And it's quite ironic, that we talk about our internet connection or, our phone or wireless connection.
Yeah, because it's not a connection, really.
Well, if you think about the speed of electronic information transfer, I got a gig out here, right? I got a gigabyte, right? This is where I'm sitting. Yeah, right? So my internet connection comes faster and the messages come off Google faster. But if I want if I want my body calm, I'm going to go hang out with some of my friends, right? This sort of direct thing is, we all can feel how we all are. We're hardwired for sensing the vibe, and it is so important for us to be in the face of that over and over again. There's a American psychologist named Virginia Satir who talks about the deep importance of getting hugs, right? A hug is a physical contact that contains a smile, right? We need that about a dozen times a day just for our bodies to be calm. If we get it 8 times a day, okay, that's, 4 times a day is like bare minimum. It's like almost, not enough to overcome the level of upset and anxiety that we carry through our lives, right? But so, hey, a dozen hugs a day. It's probably a lot cheaper and has a hell of a lot less side effects than antidepressants. Right?
Sure. I just want to ask a couple of things on the empathy thing. So it's a kind of two-parter. One, it's been my experience. I'll give you just a brief resume. I spent some time. I was an infantryman at one time. I was also a prison guard at one time. I was a prison officer in a high security prison here in Scotland. So I know how stressful that can be. I only stuck it a year. I'd rather be an infantryman than be a prison guard. But what my experience is that empathy sometimes doesn't necessarily breed empathy. Sometimes boundaries and kind of an example, a basic example, when you're a kid, maybe you don't tidy up your room or you don't do something, your dad says, hey, look, when you do that, I suppose there's empathy in there in a certain degree, but it's like, look, you're getting punished because when you do this, when you don't tidy your room, your mum has to tidy it up and she's got enough problems. And that boundary setting sometimes can create empathy. But the other thing I want to check with you is, at what point can an excessive empathy be crippling? I'm not sure. I don't know if I want policemen to be overly empathetic. I don't know if I want a surgeon to be empathetic. I don't know if I want a judge to be empathetic because they've got a job to do, and maybe an excess of empathy might be crippling. Even for a criminal, I suppose, going back into a situation which can be incredibly violent, which can be incredibly stressful, maybe an excess of empathy could maybe put him at a disadvantage. Do you know what I'm driving at here, Fred?
Yes, I absolutely understand what you're saying, and both of those examples you can use, I can address. Okay. Back to the thing about, hey, your pop coming and calling you up because your mom is working really hard and it's stressful for her to have to do this too. Yeah. So this is a cry for empathy. Okay. Notice how your mother's being affected. Right. Okay. Right? And so this is bringing you into connection. And so they're challenging the quality of that is a challenge. The quality to bring you to awareness and to bring you to present grounded awareness. Right. And the same thing about the prison guards and the police and the judges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want them to understand your basic humanity. Right. I want them to see you as fully human. I don't want them judging you that you're a criminal or a mess up or a drug addict or any of those things. I want them to come to you with full presence. Right. And I also want them to become with a full awareness of what is required to build accountability inside of a person. Right. Okay. People are wounded, and wounded people will wound people to sort of let them know how they've been hurt. Until that's been resolved inside of a person, we want to absolutely assess with great accuracy what is a human's capacity, what's their reactive capacity, what's their capacity for presence in the moment. So accountability, I'm afraid, in the United States is one of the most unmet needs that we have. Right. People are simply flushing people off to, there's a reason that prisons are put in the back of beyond, way out in these rural areas, right? Right. Because we don't see them, so we can just maintain the story that they are ridiculous monsters, right? Harmful monsters, right? If you start seeing them face to face over and over and over again, you can't see the monster anymore, right?
Right.
And there's something that comes up that you're just describing, this danger of it being permissive, right?
Right.
People's compassion can come forward, oh, I want to support you, oh, I want to embrace you, right? Without the accountability piece being built in there. So we really need to be able to assess people and see. We need two things that are essential: empathy and accountability, and hand in hand. If we don't do that, we're setting ourselves up, because you know what permissiveness does, right? Everything's fine. We'll just put you on the street. This is called blind trust.
Right.
But blind trust isn't trust. Trust is a capacity that's built up over time and has history that's involved to it.
Yeah,
How have you behaved? And if you've behaved really great in prison, there's no reason to think that you're going to behave really great on the outside. So we need to build in these transition programs where people are supported to make this cultural change. They're going through a huge cultural change. From very tight control and confinement to let's just open the doors and there's no restrictions. What they haven't practiced in there, right? They haven't practiced in. So they need somebody like the Fellow Traveler program. I believe it's part of Norway. When somebody gets incarcerated or in part of the, I think from the moment they're arrested, they're assigned somebody called a Fellow Traveler.
Right.
Somebody that walks along with them and supports them through all of these different transitions, the transition into sort of separated from society until we can build up trust that you can make different choices, and then all the programs and things that you can take to support you, right? So we've sort of lost the accountability. And of course, in the United States, the mass incarceration we have is simply a way to perpetuate slavery. If you get on Netflix and look at their new documentary called the 13th. Right. It's about the 13th Amendment here and how it basically perpetuated the slave state. And so it was really an economic move. It wasn't anything to do.
Could you spell out for our podcast listeners the 13th Amendment, what that is exactly and how it affects what you're talking about?
Basically, it abolished slavery. It said no person should be held slave except criminals.
Right, okay.
So it gave an out for slavery, right?
Right.
Oh, so we can, do whatever we want to with criminals. We can put them in prison. And then there was this huge, shortly after that, there was this leasing program that went into the 60s and 70s where you would, businesses and plantations, the old plantations that had slaves could now lease inmates, right, to work on the plantation, right?
Yeah.
So it was a perpetuation of slavery.
Right,
and this huge slave state we have. Now, in California last year, there were many, many fires. Global warming has extended the hot season in California. The amount and intensity of the fires that are there are truly scary. I mean, it's really, really scary, right? Now, there were some, I can't remember the numbers, some like 6,000 or 7,000 firefighters fighting those fires all over the state of California last year.
Right.
54% of those are inmates that make $3 a day.
Right.
A firefighter makes around $75,000 in a season. Right? Mm-hmm. So there's an economic
incentive.
So it saves the state of California, which is becoming increasingly broke. So they have a huge vested interest in keeping people in prison.
Right.
Right. That's terrible.
That's really hugely terrible. There is no reason that a nonviolent drug offender should ever go to prison.
No, I mean, we're pretty much on your side with that one.
We definitely agree with you.
You're singing to the choir with the Libertarians,
Yeah, really. Yeah. Well, $33,000 a year to incarcerate somebody.
Yeah.
Give me the $33,000 just once. I'll take 1 year of $33,000.
Yeah.
I'll put them through 2 years of rehabilitation. Yeah. When they come out, the only reason they're using drugs anyway is because they're lonely and anxious and they're self-medicating.
They want to feel good.
This anxiety they have. And once they get a good, solid social network, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. There's a wonderful book by a reporter named Johan Hari. Believe he's English.
Okay.
And it's called Chasing the Scream. He does a marvelous job of it's a very scholastic piece. It's very rigorously researched about exactly that. Why people go to prison and what happens when you simply make. And this happened in England, incidentally. They made drugs legal, and I can't remember if it was London, or one major city. They made drugs legal and fully accessible. They simply set up clinics that if you wanted to use heroin, you could come in there. It would be administered by a nurse. It would have proven purity, et cetera, and you would get support for that whole time.
Right.
Nobody preached to you, but if you wanted information or you wanted support, you could get it there.
Yeah.
And drug abuse and all the problems, AIDS and, all the dirty needles, things, all that, just crashed, right?
Yeah.
I think all of Portugal is like that now, where they're doing the same kind of thing. Right?
Yeah, it seems to be successful. We've got a tendency in the UK, I think, to give prisoners stuff as if stuff's going to help them. We'll give them facilities, and I'm sure there's some merit in it, but we'll give them TVs, we'll give them snooker tables, we'll give them all this kind of stuff that doesn't really solve the problem. How important is it that we give them your kind of stuff as opposed to physical stuff? If you could do either, I'd take it your stuff's better.
well, if we're asking about food, clothing, and shelter, I would say food, clothing, shelter, and connection.
Yeah.
They need something meaningful. They need meaningful relationships in their lives. So any kind of volunteer program that supports people in some way, right? Instead of a fellow traveler program, so people can at least go through it together, so they can bond, so they can have some sort of sense of connection, right? That is among the most important things you can do, and Hari's book really shows that.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're also aware of Gabor Mate's work in the realm of the Hungry Ghost, where he demonstrates quite thoroughly something similar to what you're saying, that addictive drug-taking behaviour is often, or always, compensating for a lack of connection and promoted by adverse childhood experiences, trauma, abandonment, abuse, neglect. So, what kind of challenges do you face teaching the things that you teach to inmates? And how do you teach empathy?
So, again, nonviolent communication is, in my view, it's a mindfulness skill. And what happens if you ask yourself how you are? This is mindfulness for yourself. This is also empathy for yourself. It's to look inside and to directly experience your present moment experience, right? So this is, how you are in this moment rather than all the thoughts and things that you're telling you. You can simply notice, here's this thought, there's that thought. It's not to push them away. It's simply to be able to be there with someone.
Right.
So one of the ways that you can, or be there with yourself, and one of the ways you can think about empathy is to fully be present to someone, right?
Yeah.
Without needing to fix it, without needing to intervene, because that wouldn't be empathy. To fully witness what's going on for another person, right?
Right.
With nothing else that you need to do with it. So that sort of curiosity about another person's state of being in the moment. Okay. Lets everyone know that they belong. Empathy itself carries, and I say, other people will say, Fred, it's implicit, it's implied. And I'm saying, no, this is explicit. We are wired for this. Okay. This quality of curiosity says to a person on a fundamental level, you belong. You have a place at the table. I see your full humanity. This is the message that comes into them because of this.
Yeah. Can I ask as well, because we're running short of time, we'll wind up shortly. You mentioned that you were trying to do a similar program for guards. What's the success rate there? How is it easier to maybe even to do this stuff with prisoners than it is to do it with guards? How reluctant are they, or how keen are they to get involved in this?
Well, there's a tension. One of them is the story that, well, if I learn this stuff, well, then I won't, I'll lose my being on guard. I won't be safe, right?
Okay, yeah.
So we constantly assure them that all we're doing is increasing their capacity to be present.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And their capacity to respond rather than react.
Okay.
Right? Because you don't want to be walking down a hall and every time anybody comes around a corner, you get activated.
Right.
Martial artists, if you go to a really good sensei and ask, what's the primary capacity a person needs to be able to do this martial art well? Presence is always the answer, right? So you just really, the best thing you can do for yourself for safety is to be absolutely present, right?
Okay.
And then the other part is because of the suicides and because of the health issues and all of these things, people dying of heart disease at 40, at 46, somebody's kicking off or taking their lives, right? There's a huge pull on that side, right, to be healthier.
Okay.
And so while we, the first couple of meetings, we do a day-long training for them of mindfulness-based wellness and resiliency. And then we do 8 2-hour sessions with them. Those first sessions, there's a little bit of like suspicion and discomfort, but very quickly people notice that they're calming down. So the things that are reported first are more sleep. Sleep is essential. You need a good 8 hours just to be calm, right?
Yeah.
So sleeping is there. Blood pressure goes down. Different choices about food and exercise start to come to the fore. So people start just sort of turning the ship that's going to run, their personal ship that's heading towards the iceberg, away from the iceberg and into more healthy and positive choices.
Right.
So yeah, there's some concern, and you're entirely right. In many cases, the correctional officers have more anxiety when they first come in than the inmates do.
Right.
And they're still responding quite positively. Now with the inmates, I've got a year-long program. I've got a year with those people, and about a half of people drop out. They not for whatever reason they do so. Some people just tell themselves that I'm okay, everything's fine, I don't need to do this, and then they come back. Those things happen over and over again.
Okay,
right.
But about half of them stay there and complete. Right? Correctional officers, I have an 8-hour day, and then another 16 hours, 8 2-hour sessions, right? So I don't have the same amount of time with them.
Right.
And I'm sad about that. I wish we had equal opportunity because it would calm everybody down. I imagine 10 years from now, Oregon prisons will be the population will be way reduced.
Wow.
And the correctional, it's such low-hanging fruit. Wow. Such a huge possibility for balancing the budget. You don't need to be doing this. And correctional officers will be making just as much as not more money, being able to support people in the community as we bring more of this back into the community and maintain the connections. And so people can, not go through the trauma of being in prison. It's a very traumatic place. And it's an isolation. It's a banishment. And that's wounding on its own.
Okay.
And I mean, if it's that successful as you say in Oregon, then it's not going to be long before other states start turning their heads, at least we hope. But before you go, I'm just interested in hearing what are some of the things that prisoners say about it, the ones that do complete, the half that do complete the program.
They sort of uniformly report that the fact that we came in there at all, that we give our time, because nobody's paid.
Right.
I'm not paid. I teach the public so I can get money so I can go support the prison.
Right. Okay.
Right. This is just the fact that we come in there tells them that they matter.
Right.
And that I've had people just stand there crying and saying, it's so amazing and important to me that you people think that I matter. I matter enough for you to use your time and resources to come into this prison. And then across the board, they report how wonderful it is for them to be reconnected to their families. It may be an estranged brother or, be able to see their kids again, those kinds of things. It's such a deeply touching thing for me to hear people expanding their social networks, trusting that they can get back into their social networks, because I know that that means peace, and their experience of peace, they'll take out into their communities when they're released and spread that in their community by just how they are with that capacity to sort of understand that this is a different way I can live. Now, does everybody, all our graduates like that? No. Occasionally somebody will go through the transition and there's unaddressed trauma there and they'll fall again, right? But they never ever fall as far as they did before. Right. There's always something there that's holding on to them.
Well, not to mix my judgments with my observations, Fred, but I think you qualify for sainthood.
Well, I don't know. Maybe ask your wife about that one. I don't know, or whoever. Yeah.
This is my penance for a misspent youth. I can tell you.
Okay, I hear you. Thank you so much for coming on our show. I found it really uplifting and informative. Yeah. And
we'd love to have you back on again at another point, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, call me. I'll be glad to do it.
Oh, fantastic. Lovely. Thank you again.
I have a couple of questions before you go.
All right. Yeah.
Show parts.
Sure.
Once you get this recorded together, can you simply send it to me?
Oh, no question.
We'd be delighted.
No question.
Yeah, I'd love to put it up on our Prison Project website.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would like to be able to refer people to where you're going to post it too, so people have a chance.
Right. So I'll let you know. There'll be 3 places that people can get it, maybe 4 soon. So it's going to be on YouTube, but just as audio with a picture. It's going to be on iTunes. You know, anyone with an iPhone has got an iTunes app. They can just type in your name, and it should come up there. It'll be on SoundCloud, and hopefully it'll be on Stitcher as well. I was just wondering, and I assume you will be, given your line of work, are you familiar with James Gilligan?
Oh, yes. Actually, Gilligan was one of the, that study I quoted, 82.6%. He did that study.
Right. That wouldn't surprise me because I know that's the focus of his attention. Have you met him before? Have you been in touch with him?
No, I have not. I've read his material, but I talked to Sonny Schwartz, who set up the program in San Francisco County jails, right?
Right.
I was thinking of trying to bring that up here, well, that hasn't gone off the ground yet.
Right. Okay. Well,
but maybe, there's as time and resources go, we need more resources. We need a bigger board of directors and much more cash to be able to. We would need to rent a local prison to set up this sort of 24/7. 365.
Right.
That study was only 6 months. People being in that program for 6 months was all. There was that 82.6% reduction. Now, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. If people want to donate, how can they do that? Where can they do that?
Oh, if you go to the Oregon Prison Project,
right?
It's OregonPrisonProject.org.
Okay.
You'll find a button there that says donate. Just send us money. I run this program on $5,000 a year or less. Right?
That is definitely bang for your buck.
And most of it goes into the toner for my colored laser printer, right?
Right.
That and wall charts, right?
The state can fine $32,000 per inmate per year, and they can't find $5,000 for you guys.
Yeah. Well, I don't ask them.
No.
Because if I start asking the state,
then I'm going to
something.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
I get to make my own choices, and for $5,000, that's a cheap price for that kind of freedom. And it's not that I'm scared about oversight. I am delighted for anybody to come in and take a look at what we do.
Right.
And I don't want anybody to think that they can actually order us to change what we're doing.
Right.
Right. This would. Yeah. I'm deeply, deeply convinced that what we are doing is effective and having a very positive effect on the people that we offer it to. And the volunteers are among them as well. The volunteers go out of this program being able to go back into their communities and be peacemakers as well.
Great stuff.
Right. Well, it was a real privilege to be able to talk to you, Fred. I really have to say I've really, really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed connecting with you as well. And I thought we'd have more skeptics.
Well, Well, you're, in a way, it's a tribute to your kind of technique because your non-violent communication, because it was all keyed up to start to have a go, and you kind of your techniques obviously worked on me.
Yeah, well, and think about how that landed in your body. Do you feel hurt for your concerns?
I feel absolutely great after this, actually.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah.
Rather than me just telling you you're stupid, which we can go over very well, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of evidence to back up the theory that I'm stupid, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. I've got good evidence to back up that one, yeah.
Yeah, really. Now if I can only do that with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Thanks again.
Okay. Thanks, Fred. Cheers, man.
Good night.
Okay, bye-bye.